Opening credits. Fight for Love. MMA Fighter Sports Romance. By Selena Coffey. Auto-narrated using Google technology. Chapter 1. By the time Jasmine stormed into Gentleman Jackson's boxing club, she'd had a full 45 minutes for her anger to pick up steam, and she was in no mood to do anything other than cry her eyes out over a glass of wine. She was exhausted. She had just spent 10 hours at the hospital, and hadn't even had the chance to change out of her scrubs before Emma peeked out of her bedroom and announced that Michael had gone off somewhere to do boxing of all things. Boxing? Jasmine knew what that meant. It meant bruises, scrapes, violence, and concussions, if this was in fact boxing and not just some makeshift fighting ring someone had set up in an alleyway. It took her 10 minutes to find out from Michael's friends where he went, and another half hour to take the requisite buses. Now that she was here, she was far from amused by the pretentious name of the boxing club. The mortified look on Michael's face only partially made up for it all. Michael. Her voice was a hiss. Michael, 16 and unusually thin, some people had all the luck, looked like he wanted to melt through the floor at being confronted by his older sister in front of all of his boxing buddies. Jasmine would have thought that was funny, but she cringed at the thought of what they were all seeing. Her wild mess of curls was only partially held back with a headband and an elastic. She was still wearing scrubs with God only knew what on them, and there wasn't a scrap of makeup on her face. In clubs in the right light with makeup and jewelry, she looked almost okay. Right now she was just chubby and disheveled. She swallowed, trying to decide whether to cut and run. Like hell she was going to be shamed by a bunch of 16-year-olds. They could be polite to her, or she would teach them a thing or two about boxing. She swept her eyes over the group, and was pleased to see that all of them quailed. Or all but one of them. "May I help you?" The voice was a drawl. When her head joked around, she saw him. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. A banner over his head proclaimed an upcoming tournament, and he was smiling at her. He had the bluest eyes she'd ever seen. "Yes," Jasmine said promptly, scowling. Those blue eyes were set above chiseled cheekbones, a mouth far too full and sensual for a man's face, and a jaw just as chiseled as the cheekbones. His nose might have the slight irregularity that came from having been broken more than once, but looking at the self-satisfied smile on the man's face, all Jasmine could think was that he must have deserved it. "What is going on here? You must be Michael's older sister." He gave a smile and looked out over the crowd of boys. "Push-ups and sit-ups, everyone. You too, Michael." "No, he's coming home with." He ushered her over to the side wall. "What seems to be the problem?" "The problem?" Jasmine glared at him. "Okay. The problem is that my younger brother is not at home doing his homework and waiting for dinner. He is here, getting beaten up so that he can come home covered in bruises with a concussion, start fighting all the time at school, worry our mother, and probably drop out before he can apply to a college. That's a lot to assume from the fact that he's trying MMA." The man didn't look exactly pleased. His white t-shirt stretched snugly over bulging biceps as he folded his arms and stared her down. "What the hell is MMA?" "Mixed martial arts," he explained tiredly. "It's a fighting style that combines Muay Thai with Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, some Tae Kwon." "So fighting." Jasmine crossed her own arms. "You're teaching him to fight. You have a problem with that?" "Of course I have a problem with it." She was going to punch him if he kept smiling at her like that. He was a pretty boy, used to getting everything he wanted when he flashed those blue eyes, and she was sure as hell not going to fall for that. She pointed one finger over at the boys doing sit-ups and push-ups, and leaned closer to hiss at the instructor. "Michael is smart. He might be a 16-year-old, but he's a good kid. He doesn't fight in school. He gets good grades. I'm not going to let him mess that up." The man sighed and leaned his head forward, running one hand over the back of his scalp. When he looked up, his eyes were more direct and grave than she expected. "Look. I grew up in Detroit, okay? So I'm not just some rich guy coming here to tell you how to behave. You know how hard it is for kids like your brother. I'm not making him violent, I'm giving him an outlet, the same outlet that saved me. Look over there. They're not doing drugs, they're not joining gangs, well, most of them. I'm working on it. These are good kids. They're doing something physical, something good for their bodies, and they're getting out a lot of the anger they can't get rid of any other good way. This isn't a good way. Why not? Did you hear a word I just said? He shook his head, looking away. Maybe you don't get it, but I do. I needed this when I was younger, just like they need it now. It kept me out of way worse things. It taught me to push for something. It gave me something to achieve. That saved my life. Well, maybe it saved your life, but Michael has things to push for. He's going to be more than just a boxer. What's wrong with being a boxer? He's going to spend half his life beat up. When he gets older, he's going to start forgetting things. Most people do. You know what I mean. Her shout echoed, and the boys looked over. Jasmine clenched her hands. Hey. I'm not going to let him be harmed. His voice was unexpectedly gentle. I have rules about that. No head strikes in sparring here. I don't do any of the crazier Muay Thai stuff. Oh yeah? He's covered in bruises. Bruises heal. He shrugged his shoulders. I don't want his teachers thinking he's turning into one of those boys. Her voice was rising again. Lady, what is your problem? What's my problem? She clenched one hand in her hair. Are you serious? Okay. Well, here's something. Our dad died of cancer 8 years ago. I'm sorry. I'm not finished. We never got out from under that debt. You know how much we owe now? $300,000. You know how we're going to pay that off? We aren't. My mom works 3 jobs and she's too sick to be working at all. The chemicals she works with at the cleaning job are ruining her. She thinks I don't know that she's dying, but I do. Jasmine could hear the tears building up in her voice, and she knew she should just walk away, but she couldn't seem to stop talking. I graduated a year early so I could go to nursing school. It's steady work, okay? And for the past 4 years, I have been trying as hard as I can to get my brother and sister through school so they can get the hell out of here. So they don't end up working cleaning jobs. So they don't get stuck here for the rest of their damned lives, paying off someone else's debt. And I was doing fine, by the way. She felt tears escape her eyes and dashed them away angrily. I told you Michael's smart. Well, he's scientist smart. He looks at math and he just gets it. He's too smart to be stuck around here, and even if he wasn't, I'd try to get him out. And Sarah? She's got the prettiest voice, but she's studying up to get her nursing degree too. They're smart. They're pulling their weight. They're going to get out. She glared at this man, this smug man who'd come in to tell her how fighting wasn't going to ruin her brother. I'm not going to let you mess this up for him. Because you know what? Losing him would actually kill my mom. She turned on her heel and marched away before he could say anything else. She knew Michael's bag, and so she snatched it up from the side. Come on. We're going. But now. At least he didn't contradict her. He hung his head as he pulled on his t-shirt, and he followed her humbly out into the cold. Where's your coat? I didn't bring one. Are you entirely stupid? Jasmine rounded on him and felt the tears start again. She squeezed her eyes shut. I didn't mean that, I'm sorry. Michael, what are you doing? What is this? I just like it. He shrugged his shoulders. It's hard not to get angry sometimes. It isn't fair that Dad died. It isn't fair that he shook his head. But when I'm here, I can forget about it, and then sometimes I feel better for hours. Days. I'm still getting as jazzy. That guy? Jasmine joked her head at the gym. He's bad news. No, he's really nice. He's bad news, Jasmine repeated. And I don't want you going back there. Chapter 2. There was a silence as the door slammed shut behind the two of them. The woman ushered her younger brother out into the evening dark, and all of the other boys stared after them. Then someone started laughing. Mike got in trouble. They were all joining in, shoving each other and shouting jokes over the noise, until Tyler pounded on the wall for them to be quiet. He had been so consumed in staring after her that he'd let the joking go on far too long. Those eyes, those lips. They stared at him, and he tried to remember how to speak. All that talk means people aren't working hard enough. He let his eyes sweep over all of them, and then pointed to the back wall. Sprints. Come on. This is boxing, not running. This is MMA, not boxing, and go on, just try to get in the ring without being fit, huh? Tyler let his genuine amusement show in his face. You'll be on YouTube forever. With a grumble they set off, sprinting back and forth between the two walls with increasingly pleading looks that Tyler ignored until he saw their pace slow to a legitimate jog. He didn't let himself smile this time, although he wanted to. These were good kids, with a lot of energy and a lot of drive. That was one thing he'd found since he moved here. These kids wanted to win at something, but even more, they wanted to be part of a team. It warmed a part of his heart that he hadn't known existed. He took the time to talk to each of them as they got ready to go home, crouching down to ask about siblings or parents, remind them about gear, ask how things were going. He'd learned over the past few months that when someone did particularly well in class, there was often something they needed to work out. Back in Detroit, his friends had been richer, and he'd been the odd one out. Here he was learning that there were other people who acted just the way he had in high school. It was James he talked to last, when nearly all the other boys had gone. James was smart, smarter than almost any of the others. Michael was the only one who rivaled him. But lately, the kid had lost focus. His endurance wasn't what it had been, and he wasn't as light on his feet. It would be easy to chalk that up to home life or normal teenage mood swings, but Tyler had a sinking feeling that he knew just what was going on. He knew far, far too well. How you doing? He sat on the bench next to James. Well. James didn't look over. You've been a little. It's fine. Is it? Tyler deliberately looked away. Because it seems like maybe school hasn't been going well too. James said nothing, but his hand slowed as he put away his gear. And you're too smart for that. Maybe high school is bullshit. Nah, high school is definitely bullshit. Tyler gave him a grin. No maybe about it. James smiled unwillingly. Just tell me, dude. If I went through your bag, what would I find? Tyler looked over at him. What do you mean? It means I'm guessing pot, but I don't know. I pray to God not heroin. Jesus, it's pot, get off my case. Pot's fine. Maybe for some people. Tyler lifted his shoulder. Most people really, except for one thing. What's that? James stood, hoisting the bag over his shoulder. Take it from someone who knows. If you do drugs to get away from something, you're never gonna stop using them. What are you, a Dare commercial or something? I used to be one of the top fighters in the world, Tyler told him brutally. Now I teach. You know why? Drugs? James clearly didn't believe him. It wasn't the drugs, it was why I took them. But trust me, they did nothing but help me on my way down. Now the kid paused, intrigued and not wanting to be. So why'd you take them? Because I thought winning tournaments would make all my problems go away, and when it didn't, I had too much money and nothing in my life. Turns out if you don't fill your life up the way you want, other things show up to fill the void, and they're never the ones you would choose. And you took pot, and your whole life fell apart? The kid was still staring at him, like he was a white kid from the suburbs who didn't get it. James? Tyler stood up. Please. Just listen for a second. Smoke pot, I don't care. I'm not here to tell you any drug's the devil. I can't see inside your head, I don't know what's going on. But if it's that you want to forget the world for a few minutes, that you like not caring about things anymore. I don't want to go to college, James interrupted. Huh? I'm supposed to want to go to college, right? I'm smart, I'm supposed to. I don't want to. Don't you like fixing cars? Yeah. James looked at him warily. So be a mechanic. Enjoy your life. Right. James stared at him. Okay. I can still come here, right? As long as you want to train, you've got a spot. Thanks. James looked off into space, then pulled a bag out of his pocket and tossed it over. Can you just get rid of that? I know I'm going to want to, well, you know. Sure. Tyler watched him go and slid down along the wall until he thudded to the ground. Tipping his head back, he let his eyes drift closed. To his surprise, he saw her. He thought back, trying to remember what Michael had said about his family. 2 sisters. This one would be Jasmine? Yes, Jasmine. He was pretty sure anyway. Michael hadn't, of course, mentioned that she was gorgeous. Being her brother, he was probably more concerned with her telling him off for skipping his homework. She was the type of woman Tyler wouldn't have had any time for even a year ago. He could remember shrugging as he saw pretty women walk past in old jeans or scrubs. Well, if she's not even going to make an effort. Not for the first time, he cringed at the memory of who he'd been. He couldn't even remember the first thing about any of the women he'd slept with around then. It was a haze of short skirts and corset tops too, high heels and lipstick. And Jasmine, something about her was just too different for him to ignore. She was one of the first women he had seen who didn't even seem to care what she looked like. Of course, she didn't have to. Her hair was the kind of curly women paid hundreds of dollars to imitate, her gray eyes were just slightly tilted at the corners, and her pert little mouth shone a perfect pink against her warm brown skin. She was short enough that she would fit just perfectly under his arm if they were walking together, and her scrubs weren't exactly flattering, but there was no hiding those curves. He sighed again, and stared at the bag in his hands. He didn't even remember everything he'd taken in those last few months. If someone handed it to him, he took it. If they recommended it, he tracked it down. At the time, he told people drunkenly he was living the dream. He usually had a gorgeous girl under each arm, a bottle of champagne somewhere, steaks and an apartment full of leather couches and widescreen TVs. For the past few months, those memories had gradually shifted until he remembered the headaches, the way morning light was far too bright, the drag in his muscles, the ever-slowing reaction times. And he remembered the tournament. He was never going to forget the tournament. He'd been too dumb even to worry about it. He'd sparred with Kevin back in the day and destroyed him, but Kevin had gotten good and Tyler had fallen off. He still remembered the split second when he realized that something was wrong, that he wasn't going to win. And that was all the time he'd had before he was staring up at the ceiling while the crowd roared. His hands tightened around the bag. He hadn't been kidding when he told James that outrunning his demons with drugs would lead nowhere. But what he should have said was that he understood just how tempting it was. He could forget everything, he could stop caring if he just took a moment to light up. If he did, he wouldn't have to remember his coach screaming at him about what he was doing to himself and the potential he was throwing away. He wouldn't have to remember how he'd said it was his life and he could do what he wanted, and he'd walked out and quit because he couldn't take a single punch. One failure was all it took to show him how unsuited he was to all of it. All he'd ever had was luck, good reflexes and good luck. He fumbled in his pocket for a lighter. And stopped, drawing in a deep breath and letting it out slowly. He forced himself to stand up, walk to the dumpster out back and drop the bag into it, wincing at the smell. The cold air chilled him and he let it, standing still and shivering. Only when the bag was gone did he consider what he'd done and why. It was because of her, the woman who had everything. Not that she'd say she had everything, he knew that. He even knew that it was cruel to accuse a woman who'd lost her father of having so much. But she cared about something. There were people she loved, and a future she wanted to protect. For the first time in a long time, Tyler felt hope stir in his
censored
hope for a better future, even if he didn't have the first idea of what that looked like. Chapter 3. Jasmine fumbled in her purse, counting the cash out carefully. She clasped it back carefully and buttoned her coat over her scrubs. It had been a particularly exhausting shift, the sort that reminded her just why she did this work, but left her so tired that she could not imagine going home to finish homework. And of course, Michael and Emma were going to need food and lunches for school tomorrow. And their mother would need to be talked into taking her medicine. If she thought about it all at once, she was going to cry. Jasmine walked quickly down the hallways. Right now, all she needed to do was get the medicine. That was manageable. In the hospital pharmacy, she smiled tiredly at her boss. Any plans for tonight? Way too much paperwork to go through, the woman confided. Her gaze, always uncomfortably shrewd, took in Jasmine's shadowed eyes and the money clutched in one trembling hand. You're off to have dinner now, right? Yes. Good. And you were on the team helping that little girl who came in today, right? The head nurse was one of the most well-informed people Jasmine had ever met. She tended to know just what was going on in every ward, and she always knew the projects her nurses were doing. Yes. She's stable now, I checked before I left. The little girl, who had come in with seizures and a high fever, was now sleeping angelically, and Jasmine had been heartened to see one of her favorite colleagues watching over her. You've been doing really well, her boss said as Jasmine stepped up to the counter. I know you'll be graduating soon. I'd love to have you stay on my team. Thanks. Tears pricked at Jasmine's eyes. On good days, she told herself that she did this job because it was so stable for income in addition to really helping people out. On bad days, she told herself that anyone could get fired these days. She handed over her mother's prescription slip and waited. That'll be $55.84, the pharmacist said cheerfully. No, that prescription is $40, Jasmine protested. There was an edge of panic in her voice, and she tried to push it away. She didn't have $55.84, not even if she walked home. It says here $55.84. He lifted a shoulder helplessly. Your insurance company may have changed coverage. Hey, I've got this. Jasmine's boss pushed past her. You don't have to do this. Shame was burning in Jasmine's cheeks. Jasmine, my nurses are some of the hardest working people I've ever met, and this hospital pays them next to nothing. It's in line with what other hospitals pay. That doesn't make it okay. Her boss drew her aside. Look, you've been picking up extra shifts, you're exhausted, and you're more than pulling your weight on this team. You get paid less than you're worth, and I get paid more than I'm worth, and I'm single, I've got no one to spend money on. Let me do this, okay? Jasmine hesitated, her pride screaming at her. But at last her shoulders slumped. If she didn't take this offer, she wouldn't have the pills to bring back to her mother tonight. She nodded. Jasmine? Yeah. It's going to be okay, her boss said awkwardly. What do you mean? I mean, I just feel like good things are going to happen for you. The woman flushed. Look. Go on now. Get home, get some rest. Jasmine blinked at a loss for what to say, and headed for the bus stop. It was cold, and she folded her arms and hunched her shoulders as she waited, eyes fixed on the bright red of her coat. She knew from experience that for about an hour after her shift, she had no energy to read textbooks or look over her homework, so she didn't even try, expecting her mind to go entirely blank. Instead she saw him, blue eyes, chiseled jaw, perfectly muscled body. He was a joker, she told herself. He was a pretty boy who'd come here to teach boys to fight, because no matter what he said, he didn't understand that none of the boys he taught had any leeway to mess up. There was one shot at success for the kids in Jasmine's neighborhood. If they missed it because their teachers thought they were troublemakers, or because they got into a fight in school, there was no more chance for them to succeed. But this guy, Tyler, Michael had said while he was pleading to be allowed to go back, just smiled with that full mouth and knew people would give him whatever he wanted. Which was what made her so furious about the fact that she couldn't stop thinking about him. Jasmine climbed onto the bus and paid her fare, choosing a seat near the door. She didn't want to like this guy. She didn't want to keep thinking about the gleam of humor in his eyes, about what she might say to make it appear again, or about how she wanted him to share his private joke with her. It had been months since Jasmine had even been out with her friends, and that had been because they dragged her out with them after her boyfriend stopped calling her. Jasmine had been vaguely embarrassed about that. Women weren't supposed to be left, after all, and anyone looking at her chubby frame would surely know why he'd gone, but she hadn't been brave enough to tell her friends that she didn't really care. She hadn't cared about any guy in about a year and a half. This new stab of
censored,
sweet and seductive set off a storm inside her. She was more aware of her body than she could remember being, feeling the slide of cloth over her skin. She'd spent a few minutes the other night studying her face in the mirror, admiring her eyes and her mouth, before she remembered that there was no way in hell Tyler would be interested in her. And she didn't want him to be, she told herself fiercely. That way there was nothing good at all. She knew what it meant to get tangled up with guys who thought they were better than you, and she knew too that she had no time even for a really nice guy. Her phone buzzed and she looked down to see a text from her boss. Also, you should use that money for something for you. Jasmine felt her lips curve in genuine amusement. What would she use it for? A new dress she'd never wear? Nail polish she couldn't use because she was always washing her hands? Hairdos she'd only have to tie back while she was at work? I will. Better that her boss thought she'd taken the advice. When her phone buzzed again, she was staring out the window and she smiled as she checked it. Her smile died on her face, however, as she read the text from Emma. Michael just got home, and I think he was at the boxing place again. Jasmine looked around herself, noting the streets, and then yanked the stop cord. She raced off the bus when it screeched to a stop, offering a hasty apology to the bus driver, and set off. She was close to the gym here. She wasn't going to confront Michael yet. She was going to confront that pretty boy bastard, and tell him to stay away from her brother. When she yanked open the door of the gym, she found it blessedly empty, almost. In one corner a single bare bulb was on, and Tyler was unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks at a hanging bag. Jasmine felt her mouth drop open. He was shirtless, and she could see the interplay of muscles over his gorgeous back. A few tattoos stood out against his pale skin, and she found herself wondering what those symbols meant to him. There was a tinge of exhaustion to his movements, as though he had been at this for some time. Jasmine hesitated. She knew all too well what someone looked like when they were furiously trying to forget something. A stab of pity twisted in her,
censored,
telling her to leave Tyler alone with his pain. But then he danced sideways around the bag, and his eyes caught sight of her standing by the door. He froze. And he smiled. It was a brilliant smile, eyes crinkling at the corners with pleasure. It made her furious. What the hell do you think you're doing? Jasmine demanded. She knew her voice carried across the room, but she started over to him anyway. She stabbed her finger in the air. I told you I didn't want Michael fighting. The smile died from his face. Has he been getting in fights at school? Not that I know of, but it's only a matter of time. No, the man snapped. It isn't. You seem to think I'm giving him all this aggression and anger, but the fact is, it's just there. You've never been a teenage boy, you don't understand. He's angry, and he's here because he's found a place where he can get that out without sabotaging his whole life. Do you not see that? Do you not see that I'm trying to keep him safe? I see that. His voice exploded to a yell. He made a conscious effort to pull himself together, closing his eyes for a second. Look. He said it through gritted teeth. Your brother's 16. That's too young to be out on his own, but you can't hope to send him away to college without even letting him test the waters. He wants to be a man, Jasmine. Not a boy. You have to let him make some choices for himself. You have to let go. I can't let go. To her horror, she felt all the words she had pent up for years spill out of her. If I let go, do you know what happens? Things fall apart. Michael drops out of school, Emma drops out of school, and our mother dies. I am trying to keep this family together, and get at least 2 of us out of here. And it's killing you. He was close now, much too close. What? It's killing you. He stared down at her. Do you see that? You're taking everyone else's problems on your shoulders, and it's killing you, Jasmine. And call me crazy, but... He shook his head, a disbelieving laugh on his lips. But I don't want that, he finished. What? That didn't make any sense. He leaned forward hesitantly, and she saw what was happening but could not believe it. She was frozen, staring up at him, smelling the sweat and the smell of the soap he used, and she couldn't even move when he pressed his lips against hers. Chapter 4. Her lips were soft. That was his first surprise thought. She fit perfectly against him, and he was just wrapping his arms around her to pull her closer when he realized that he wasn't imagining this. He'd actually done it. He joked away, and she kept standing there, frozen, as if she had no idea what to do. She blinked those gray eyes at him, and couldn't seem to think of anything to say. But now that he'd
censored
her once, it was going to torture him not to do it again. Tyler reached for her, scanning her eyes worriedly for rejection or anger. Once, women had thrown themselves at him, but he wasn't that man anymore, and Jasmine would never have wanted that man anyway. And now, Tyler didn't know what kind of man he was anymore, or what he was supposed to do when he liked someone. To his surprise, she stepped into the
censored
and stood on tiptoe for his lips to come down on hers once more. Her fingers slid up around his neck, slick against the sweat, and although he had a passing moment of shame about her seeing him like this, she didn't seem to mind in the slightest. She pressed herself willingly against him. For a moment. Then she apparently remembered who he was. You.
censored
Me. He cleared his throat. Yes. I'm sorry. You think you can just wait you're sorry? She frowned at him. I didn't mean to. He swallowed. I'm sorry. And I'm all sweaty. To his surprise, he startled a genuine laugh out of her. I'm a nurse. Sweat is the least bad thing I get on me. Her eyes widened when she realized what she'd said. But I'm clean now. I mean, my jacket's clean. My scrubs aren't, but that shouldn't matter unless you. She trailed off. I won't lick them, Tyler promised her, and she laughed again. He liked making her laugh, he realized. Hesitantly, he reached out to tuck in a stray curl. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Well, I'm guessing most women don't yell at you, she said with tart humor. No. They don't. He shrugged. But lately. Lately, she prompted when his voice trailed off. He cleared his throat. Nothing. Look, could I take you for a cup of coffee or something? Coffee sounds nice. She frowned. Unless you really want to. It's not just so Michael can keep practicing? What part of, I can't stop thinking about you, didn't make sense? He allowed his own sarcastic humor to come out. She didn't smile. Guys like you. He waited at a loss, and she finally gestured impatiently at herself. Guys like you aren't interested in someone who looks like me. Why not? The makeup? He used to say, you could tell everything you needed to know about a woman from the way she dressed. He supposed he might still believe it, but he was looking for different things now. No, I mean, She frowned at him. Are you going to make me say it? I honestly don't have the first idea what you mean. He pulled a shirt on over his head. And you have the wrong idea about me, but I understand where you got it. I used to be that guy. She tilted her head to the side. Which guy? The joker who went home with groupies, he said bluntly. The shorter the skirt, the better. What changed? The gray eyes were alert. I lost a fight, he said brutally. She didn't say anything to that, only watched him as he got his coat and his bag. As they started out into the city, he was afraid she would ask him more about his past, but instead she sighed heavily. I'm sorry, you know. He looked over at her, and resisted the urge to reach over and take her hand. For yelling at you. One shoulder lifted. I've been thinking about what you said. 16 seemed so young to me, and in some ways Michael is still my little kid brother who fell off the counter trying to get cookies. But he has to learn to be a man. He found a way to deal with anger without letting it affect his school. Or us. I'm proud of him. I'm glad, Tyler said honestly. You should be. Your brother's going to be a remarkable man. But don't apologize. No. No. I admire it really. You came in there all fiery, and it was clear you cared about him so much. For a long time, I haven't cared about anyone that way. You wanted to protect your brother, and a few months ago that wouldn't even have made sense to me. But this job has taught me a lot about that. It's What? She was smiling as she looked over at him, and he was embarrassed by the revelation. Well, I guess you could say it's saving my life. She considered for most of a block. Saving you from what? Success. Sounds pretty stupid, but it's true. I wasn't ready for it, and it ate me up. After I lost, I had nothing to live for. It showed me that I didn't have what it took to win. I'd just gotten lucky before, I guess. They don't get it either, those boys. They keep getting on my case about tournaments, and... You only ever lost once? Jasmine asked him. Yeah. He held open the door for her, and she preceded him into the little diner. So why do you think you just got lucky the other times? Well, I was fast, but I didn't. He shook his head. I don't know, I guess. I feel like I didn't earn my success. It took losing to show me that. Who beat you? A kid I trained with. He shook his head as the coffee mugs were set down in front of them. I always thought I was better than he was. But he kept training and I got sloppy, see. Too many drugs. Too many late nights. I was skipping practice. And in the end, it caught up with me. None of that is luck, Jasmine told him flatly. She raised her eyebrows. You were born with talent. If you worked like that other kid did, you could have beaten him. So? She considered, searching for the words. So you said when success came for you, you weren't ready for it. Maybe that's because you never had anything to work for. When you told me that you knew how my brother needed an outlet, I'm guessing that's true. Maybe now, seeing what it means to someone else, you can see why it's important to work for your wins, and your success would feel earned. Then it wouldn't eat you up. He felt his lips twitch in a weak smile. Maybe. Maybe? She shook her head at him. I saw you when you said you used to be good. Your face lit up and then just crashed down again. You want to get back in the ring. I'm not going to say you just run away, because it sounds like that life was killing you. But I think you figured yourself out, and now maybe you want to win again. I don't even know. Maybe start by taking the advice you give the guys, she said quietly. Michael told me, you know. He wanted me to know you were a good guy. He told me how you're always telling them to do their absolute best on the fundamentals, push themselves until they're tired, always striving to do their best. And then what? He stared at her bleakly. Then you get back in the ring. What if I lose? The words were harsh. You've done that already, she said. Her smile was gentle. It didn't kill you. And you can't win if you don't fight. Tyler, I can't even remember a time when I had something I wanted to win like that. But you have something. Fight for it. And what? Tyler couldn't stop himself from grinning. I think I need to.
Censored.
You again. Chapter 5. Oh no. Michael looked faintly queasy. Look, I'll go, but... I'm not here to yell at you, Jasmine whispered. She held a finger up to her lips and beckoned Michael to come closer to the ring with her. Oh my God. Michael stopped dead. You're the chick he won't shut up about? Jasmine turned guiltily, a flush rising hot in her cheeks. She tried to bite back a smile, but couldn't bring herself to do so. You are? Michael's voice was accusing. Look at you. When was the last time you dressed up? Shut up. I'm not dressed up. Michael raised an eyebrow at her shirt, jeans, and boots. I can't remember the last time I saw you wearing something other than your scrubs. That's never mind. Oh, my sister is screwing my MMA instructor. Oh no. Shut up. They both quieted down when some of the boys looked over at them and crept closer to watch the match in progress. Tyler had gotten in the ring himself, as he'd told Jasmine he was going to do. I've even been afraid to fight my own students, he said, shaking his head. He had clearly been training. They hadn't had much time for one another in the past few weeks, her with her work and her school, him with his training, but she had often brought her work to the gym after classes were done and read as he trained. She let her eyes travel over the bruises on his torso, wincing in sympathy, and noted the scrapes on his knees and knuckles. He had also clearly been fighting for hours by now. His steps were dragging with exhaustion, though his eyes were clear, and his opponent had all the quicksilver speed of a tiny teenage boy. Without an ounce of fat on him, and fairly short for his age, he had clearly learned to get out of the way in fights. As they watched, however, he seemed to work his courage up, and as he danced away and Tyler followed, the younger boy came back with a punch that knocked Tyler back across the ring. There was a murmur. Oof. The man stood, but he was grinning around the blood on his mouth. Good. Good job. There was some scattered clapping, and the boys went to retrieve their bags, a few of them throwing curious looks Jasmine's way. That was a good match. She smiled as she looked at him. Aren't you worried you tired yourself out too much, though? The tournament is tomorrow. This is the only way I can sleep before tournaments, he confided. Otherwise, I lie awake all night. He squeezed his eyes closed. I'm terrified. Don't be. Why not? He looked over at her. Do you know what it's like to lose in front of that many people? No. But I know you didn't let yourself be destroyed last time. Jasmine reached out to put a hand on his face. And I know that the worst part of losing was realizing that you didn't have the life you wanted. And so you built one. He leaned his face against her hand, smiling. Sometimes I think you're not even real. I'm real. Jasmine smiled at him, then looked over to where Michael was hovering. I'll be right there. Stay with me tonight, Tyler said quietly. Come back to my place. I can't. I need to go cook some dinner, and Emma and I can cook dinner, Michael said. He flushed when they looked over. Well, we can. And pack lunches for yourselves? Jasmine asked suspiciously. I can't make your crazy rice bowls, but one can make PB&J. He shrugged, and then cleared his throat awkwardly. Why don't you take a night off? That would be nice, Jasmine admitted. I'll see you tomorrow, Michael said, and left at high speed before his face could explode from his blush. He's a good kid, Tyler said. So? Shall we? I don't have any pajamas or a toothbrush, or... We'll stop and get you a toothbrush, and you can wear one of my t-shirts for pajamas. He gave a little growl. I cannot wait to see you wearing it. Jasmine blushed and laughed as he ushered her out, but she sobered as they walked through the streets together to his apartment. He'd become more withdrawn, with every passing day as the tournament approached. Often she saw him staring at the wall, his eyes shadowed as if he hadn't slept. He'd pushed himself hard enough in training that she had worried for him, at times. He would hobble along the streets with her, refusing her offer to get a cab. She would take care of him tonight. She rolled her aching shoulders and promised herself that no matter how tired she was, it would be worth it for her to see him win and regain his confidence tomorrow. She plastered a smile on her face and looked brightly at him whenever he looked over at her. When they got to his apartment, however, he poured a glass of wine and put it in her hand, then ushered her firmly to the couch. Sit, he said firmly. What? She could see the steaks and potatoes on the counter, and she wasn't sure how long she could stay awake. She should start cooking now. I'm going to make some dinner, Tyler said. He draped a blanket over her lap. You rest a moment. You're going to cook? They had spent their dates around the city, walking to taco stands and hanging out in the little diners between their homes. It's not going to be gourmet, but I actually can cook, you know. How did you think I survived this long living on my own? That's true. Jasmine kicked off her boots and curled her feet up under her. It felt amazing to be able to sit down. Her shift at the hospital had been much too long. So, she watched him as he began to chop the potatoes. Who taught you to cook? I learned to cook on my own, actually. He shook his head. I was terrible at it for years. Thankfully, we have the internet. I was trying to get through a steak one night, and I thought, I bet someone actually has steps to do this. Turned everything around. Hum. Jasmine cradled the wine glass in her hand and watched him work, smiling as he tossed the onions in a pan and set the potatoes to boil. So, what do you normally cook for yourself? Piles of pasta and salad and meat, he said cheerfully. I want to try those rice bowls Michael mentioned though. Will you make me one? Sure, but it's nothing fancy. It's just plain old Jamaican rice and peas. My dad taught me how to make it. Rice and peas? That sounds Indian. Jasmine laughed. It's actually kidney beans. And coconut milk and spices. It's good. Not fancy but good. My kind of food. He grinned up at her. Drink your wine. I'll fall asleep if I have any wine. You need some sleep. He came over to
censored
her. Did you get your paper in? Yeah. She felt herself grin. I got an A. Of course you did. Did you know you have this ferocious scowl while you're writing? It's adorable. He grinned at her as he went back to the stove. You like balsamic vinegar, by the way, right? White people. But sure. I'll have some of your fancy vinegar. She took a sip of her wine and grinned at him over the rim of her glass. I will have you know, Tyler said with great dignity, that balsamic vinegar makes a fantastic marinade. Aha. She giggled. You have any sea salt over there? Yeah, I'm a white boy. He gave her a surprisingly cheeky smile. You like me, though. I do. She shook her head to watch him. He'd cleaned the blood away, but he was still covered in bruises and scrapes. Even so, he was one of the most beautiful people she'd ever seen in her life. That he was with her, that he wanted to be with her, was something that still didn't make any sense to her. As if sensing her thoughts, he looked up at her. I'm so happy with you. It's only been 4 weeks, Jasmine admonished him. At his raised eyebrow, she felt herself grin. I'm happy with you too. Because we're perfect for one another, he said precisely. See, you're smart and pretty, and I like smart, pretty people. It's uncanny. Jasmine snorted a mouthful of wine up her nose and reached frantically for a napkin. Sorry. He came over to
censored
the top of her head and then knelt by her side. What I mean to say is, I've never actually had anyone believe in me. My coach took me on because he thought I could win without him having to do anything. My parents, well, never mind about them. My teachers thought I was a lost cause. And I tried to live up to that. He shrugged his shoulders and swallowed. I did everything I could to disappoint them. Maybe I thought it was funny. Maybe I thought that if they were so determined to convict me, then I'd just be that person and not give a damn about any of it. You're the only one who has looked at me, looked at what I was too afraid to admit I wanted, and asked why I wasn't working for it. Maybe it means nothing to you, but it means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Michael too. I'll bet it means a lot to your little sister. Jasmine reached for his hand. Thank you, she whispered. We're going to find you a dream, Tyler promised her. He laid his forehead against hers. Something you really want to do with your life. Maybe it'll be nursing. But whatever it is, we'll find it. And I'll be there whenever you need encouragement to go for it. He
censored
her. And I'll cook you dinner. Every night. If you want me to. Chapter 5. Oh no. Michael looked faintly queasy. Look, I'll go, but I'm not here to yell at you, Jasmine whispered. She held a finger up to her lips and beckoned Michael to come closer to the ring with her. Oh my God. Michael stopped dead. You're the chick he won't shut up about? Jasmine turned guiltily, a flush rising hot in her cheeks. She tried to bite back a smile, but couldn't bring herself to do so. You are? Michael's voice was accusing. Look at you. When was the last time you dressed up? Shut up. I'm not dressed up. Michael raised an eyebrow at her shirt, jeans, and boots. I can't remember the last time I saw you wearing something other than your scrubs. That's never mind. Oh, my sister is screwing my MMA instructor. Oh no. Shut up. They both quieted down when some of the boys looked over at them and crept closer to watch the match in progress. Tyler had gotten in the ring himself, as he'd told Jasmine he was going to do. I've even been afraid to fight my own students, he said, shaking his head. He had clearly been training. They hadn't had much time for one another in the past few weeks, her with her work and her school, him with his training, but she had often brought her work to the gym after classes were done and read as he trained. She let her eyes travel over the bruises on his torso, wincing in sympathy, and noted the scrapes on his knees and knuckles. He had also clearly been fighting for hours by now. His steps were dragging with exhaustion, though his eyes were clear, and his opponent had all the quicksilver speed of a tiny teenage boy. Without an ounce of fat on him, and fairly short for his age, he had clearly learned to get out of the way in fights. As they watched, however, he seemed to work his courage up, and as he danced away and Tyler followed, the younger boy came back with a punch that knocked Tyler back across the ring. There was a murmur. Oof. The man stood, but he was grinning around the blood on his mouth. Good. Good job. There was some scattered clapping, and the boys went to retrieve their bags, a few of them throwing curious looks Jasmine's way. That was a good match. She smiled as she looked at him. Aren't you worried you tired yourself out too much, though? The tournament is tomorrow. This is the only way I can sleep before tournaments, he confided. Otherwise I lie awake all night. He squeezed his eyes closed. I'm terrified. Don't be. Why not? He looked over at her. Do you know what it's like to lose in front of that many people? No. But I know you didn't let yourself be destroyed last time. Jasmine reached out to put a hand on his face. And I know that the worst part of losing was realizing that you didn't have the life you wanted. And so you built one. He leaned his face against her hand, smiling. Sometimes I think you're not even real. I'm real. Jasmine smiled at him, then looked over to where Michael was hovering. I'll be right there. Stay with me tonight, Tyler said quietly. Come back to my place. I can't. I need to go cook some dinner, and Emma and I can cook dinner, Michael said. He flushed when they looked over. Well, we can. And pack lunches for yourselves? Jasmine asked suspiciously. I can't make your crazy rice bowls, but one can make PB&J. He shrugged, and then cleared his throat awkwardly. Why don't you take a night off? That would be nice, Jasmine admitted. I'll see you tomorrow, Michael said, and left at high speed before his face could explode from his blush. He's a good kid, Tyler said. So? Shall we? I don't have any pajamas or a toothbrush, or... We'll stop and get you a toothbrush, and you can wear one of my t-shirts for pajamas. He gave a little growl. I cannot wait to see you wearing it. Jasmine blushed and laughed as he ushered her out, but she sobered as they walked through the streets together to his apartment. He'd become more withdrawn, with every passing day as the tournament approached. Often she saw him staring at the wall, his eyes shadowed as if he hadn't slept. He'd pushed himself hard enough in training that she had worried for him, at times. He would hobble along the streets with her, refusing her offer to get a cab. She would take care of him tonight. She rolled her aching shoulders and promised herself that no matter how tired she was, it would be worth it for her to see him win and regain his confidence tomorrow. She plastered a smile on her face and looked brightly at him whenever he looked over at her. When they got to his apartment, however, he poured a glass of wine and put it in her hand, then ushered her firmly to the couch. Sit, he said firmly. What? She could see the steaks and potatoes on the counter, and she wasn't sure how long she could stay awake. She should start cooking now. I'm going to make some dinner, Tyler said. He draped a blanket over her lap. You rest a moment. You're going to cook? They had spent their dates around the city, walking to taco stands and hanging out in the little diners between their homes. It's not going to be gourmet, but I actually can cook, you know. How did you think I survived this long living on my own? That's true. Jasmine kicked off her boots and curled her feet up under her. It felt amazing to be able to sit down. Her shift at the hospital had been much too long. So, she watched him as he began to chop the potatoes. Who taught you to cook? I learned to cook on my own, actually. He shook his head. I was terrible at it for years. Thankfully, we have the internet. I was trying to get through a steak one night, and I thought, I bet someone actually has steps to do this. Turned everything around. Jasmine cradled the wine glass in her hand and watched him work, smiling as he tossed the onions in a pan and set the potatoes to boil. So, what do you normally cook for yourself? Piles of pasta and salad and meat, he said cheerfully. I want to try those rice bowls Michael mentioned though. Will you make me one? Sure, but it's nothing fancy. It's just plain old Jamaican rice and peas. My dad taught me how to make it. Rice and peas? That sounds Indian. Jasmine laughed. It's actually kidney beans. And coconut milk and spices. It's good. Not fancy but good. My kind of food. He grinned up at her. Drink your wine. I'll fall asleep if I have any wine. You need some sleep. He came over to
censored
her. Did you get your paper in? Yeah. She felt herself grin. I got an A. Of course you did. Did you know you have this ferocious scowl while you're writing? It's adorable. He grinned at her as he went back to the stove. You like balsamic vinegar, by the way, right? White people. But sure. I'll have some of your fancy vinegar. She took a sip of her wine and grinned at him over the rim of her glass. I will have you know, Tyler said with great dignity, that balsamic vinegar makes a fantastic marinade. Aha. She giggled. You have any sea salt over there? Yeah, I'm a white boy. He gave her a surprisingly cheeky smile. You like me, though. I do. She shook her head to watch him. He'd cleaned the blood away, but he was still covered in bruises and scrapes. Even so, he was one of the most beautiful people she'd ever seen in her life. That he was with her, that he wanted to be with her, was something that still didn't make any sense to her. As if sensing her thoughts, he looked up at her. I'm so happy with you. It's only been 4 weeks, Jasmine admonished him. At his raised eyebrow, she felt herself grin. I'm happy with you too. Because we're perfect for one another, he said precisely. See, you're smart and pretty, and I like smart, pretty people. It's uncanny. Jasmine snorted a mouthful of wine up her nose and reached frantically for a napkin. Sorry. He came over to
censored
the top of her head and then knelt by her side. What I mean to say is, I've never actually had anyone believe in me. My coach took me on because he thought I could win without him having to do anything. My parents, well, never mind about them. My teachers thought I was a lost cause. And I tried to live up to that. He shrugged his shoulders and swallowed. I did everything I could to disappoint them. Maybe I thought it was funny. Maybe I thought that if they were so determined to convict me, then I'd just be that person and not give a damn about any of it. You're the only one who has looked at me, looked at what I was too afraid to admit I wanted, and asked why I wasn't working for it. Maybe it means nothing to you, but it means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Michael too. I'll bet it means a lot to your little sister. Jasmine reached for his hand. Thank you, she whispered. We're going to find you a dream, Tyler promised her. He laid his forehead against hers. Something you really want to do with your life. Maybe it'll be nursing. But whatever it is, we'll find it. And I'll be there whenever you need encouragement to go for it. He
censored
her. And I'll cook you dinner. Every night. If you want me to. Chapter 6. Even in the locker room, the roar of the crowd was deafening. Tyler sat on the bench and sank his head into his hands. He could remember listening to this sound before, back when it only fired him up. His words to Jasmine rang in his ears. I did everything I could to disappoint them. It hadn't just been his teachers and his parents. He thrived off the energy of thinking that the world hated him and wanted to see him lose. When he went into the ring, it had been with the assumption that everyone there wanted to see him get knocked out, and he wasn't going to let them win. He was going to disappoint them. Jasmine was out there today, her and all the guys from the gym. There were people in the crowd from his neighborhood who'd stopped to ask if he was the Tyler that was fighting in the tournament coming up. These guys knew boxing from the old days, from growing up like he had, fighting anyone and everyone. And as soon as he went out there and started to lose, they were going to know he was a fraud, and there was going to be pity in their eyes every time they saw him afterward. He was shaking. He wanted to grab his bag and run. Better to be a coward and have them believe he could have won after all, than have them see him lose. Everyone was out there. His old coach was out there even, but for the other guy. Drake. Tyler shook his head. The kid had kept training. Tyler supposed he had kept training too, honing his eyes to see new techniques and working his body to the limit every day before class and after class. He'd spent his mornings running down the familiar roads and lifting weights in his tiny living room, but surely that wasn't the same. Unless, well, maybe it was. You've lost before and it didn't kill you. So what if they all thought he had lost it? He stood up, bouncing on the balls of his feet to loosen the muscles. So some of them expected him to win. Hell, some of them probably did hate him. But this time, he wasn't here for any of them. He was here because he found a pure, unmatched beauty in the art of the fight. He was here because the woman he loved had believed he could do this. And he had better win, because it was going to be damned awkward to tell her how much he loved her if he had just lost. It would be too demoralizing. It was scary as hell anyway, and he needed all the help he could get. He wondered what she would say, and imagined her telling him that it was too early. She would tell him that too. She would say, it had only been a few weeks. He already knew his answer to that. I know I'm going to love you. I don't know how I know, but I know it. He knew it didn't make sense. But he also knew it was true. He pushed his way out of the locker room and into the deafening roar, and felt a smile stretch across his face. He did not look for Jasmine, he could feel her there believing in him. He did not look for the guys, he could hear them yelling his name, and it made the blood pound in his.
Censored.
He'd never had anyone in the stands cheering for him before. He'd never given back before. He'd never taught or helped or been kind. And he was surprised to find that the thought of the past few months warmed him more than the thought of victory. He sized up Drake as he stepped into the ring. The boy was taller now, and his shoulders were broader. He'd been training hard, that much was clear. But there was a sleekness to his gear, a smoothness to his skin that suggested he'd been training in an elite gym, pushing himself to the limits on shiny machines while never getting down and dirty. Tyler allowed himself a lazy smile. When the bell went, he waited, and saw the flicker of consternation on Drake's face. Once Tyler had been impulsive, always rushing in. He had no defensive mode then, and Drake had taken full advantage of that. It was as if the man had expected that Tyler would come back knowing nothing new. His loss. Tyler darted away as Drake closed in, catching the man with an uppercut in the ribs before dancing out of range. The man winced and Tyler smiled. Before, he hadn't been much of a one for a tiny flurry of punches when one big one was so dramatic. But his students, all smaller, all used to winning fights they had no business even being in, had taught him the power of small strikes. He was holding his own now. Tyler managed his distance, allowing the fight to drag on, searching for signs of weakness in his opponent. Drake was in peak physical condition, no doubt barred from anything delicious and forbidden to drink. But he wasn't used to fighting for a long time. That was the difference between the two of them. Tyler caught him with a smarting blow on the temple and shrugged off a glancing hit to his torso. He had a chance here. He felt his heart begin to swell, smugness radiating from inside him. Drake was good, Drake had trained. But Drake had also come here thinking this would be an easy win. He hadn't thought Tyler would have the strength to get up and fight again. He was going to. The flurry of punches caught Tyler without warning, blows raining onto his torso and then up onto his head. The crowd's yells rose to a scream and Tyler stumbled back, his head ringing and stars flashing before his eyes. Drake was closing in on him aggressively now, and every time Tyler tried to evade him, he was getting closer and closer to failing. He knew how powerful Drake's strikes could be. As he slid sideways the next time, at last, one of those famous punches caught him right along the jaw. He was falling. He was going to go down and not get up, and he'd have to watch them hoist Drake's hand into the air again. Tyler embraced the sickening drop in his stomach as he went over backwards. Time had slowed down to a tiny crawl and he could see everything through his slitted eyes. Drake's smug grin, Tyler's former coach yelling in triumph, the crowd with their mouths hanging open. He was going to lose. He'd known he was going to lose, and he'd come here anyway. Why? No. The thought caught him halfway to the floor. It wasn't over until he said it was over. He'd lost last time because he'd been too shocked, too hurt, too blindsided to get up again and face another hit. He'd lost because he hadn't known how to get up. With time still moving so slowly that Tyler felt trapped, lost, he began to twist. He watched his foot start to move. Could he catch himself in time? Time snapped back into focus and he slammed back against the ropes, catching himself and staggering back up, his hands coming up into a guard. He saw his coach's eyes widen, heard the yell for Drake to turn around. The fear in the other man's eyes was like a drug, sending fire down Tyler's veins. He was still seeing spots, but he was not going to go down without a fight, a real fight. He was in it for the long haul. He had something to win for now. He unleashed his own flurry of punches, the combination he'd been drilling the boys on for weeks now. Put effort into your fundamentals, he told them, striding around as their punches connected with pads. Your fundamentals will save you every time. And so they were, his punches landing perfectly on point, knuckles meeting ribs, jaw, nose. And then Drake was on the floor and the crowd was screaming, and a man was hoisting Tyler's hand into the air. He shook his head, trying to make sense of what had happened. He could see people jumping and waving, cheering his name and applauding. It was as if he had never won before in his life. As if he'd never understood what it meant to win. They were proud of him. He'd taken hits and come back. He was their underdog and he'd won fairly. They were cheering for him. He felt tears in his eyes and blinked them back, punching the air with one fist. He vaulted over the ropes without even thinking. He could hear Jasmine's voice, and he ran to her through the crowd, enfolding her in his arms. She was laughing and crying.
Censored.
Him, and he could see the words her mouth was shaping even if he couldn't hear them over the yelling. I'm so proud of you. He leaned his forehead against hers and laughed with joy, with relief. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. Thank you for reading my book. If you like this story, I think you'll enjoy my author friend's book Rough Start. A big favor to ask. I would really love it if you could take a few seconds to leave me a review. Thank you so much in advance. About the author. Selena Coffey is a romance writer who lives happily in London with her husband and son. She is a hopeless romantic who grew up always believing in love, and she is not ashamed to admit this. It is this belief that makes her so passionate about writing crazy love stories. A stereotypical girly girl, she loves shopping. So whenever she gets a chance and the spare cash, you will probably find her browsing online for the next pair of shoes to add to her collection. You can find her online at www.selenacoffey.com. Contact her at hello@selenacoffey.com. Closing credits. This has been Fight for Love. Written by Selena Coffey. Auto-narrated using Google technology. Copyright 2024 by Lovey Books Limited. Production copyright 2024 by Lovey Books Limited.